This week's episode is sponsored by the War for the Tower podcast. If you're not interested in an actual play RPG podcast set in the universe of Stephen King's Dark Tower, though, why not try out some other shows with the same host? The network is called Sinister Parent Company, and under that umbrella, there's Good Idea, a comedy podcast about solving real-life problems, Shattered Worlds, another actual playcast based on a tabletop game that Jeff created, and Everything is Awesome, which is a podcast about art, music, and life. You can find out more by searching any of those titles on your podcatcher and follow the network on Twitter at twitter.com/SinParentCo. You can also find them at warforthetower.com or search War for the Tower on your podcatcher. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 7, Episode 2, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. In this episode, you would really think that the title would be pretty self-explanatory, but we also have to rescue Queen Nefertiti from Solomon, who is going to sell her after committing genocide. So, all in all, this is probably one of the more bonkers episodes, plot-wise. Welcome to Spoil Me. No, welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am somebody. Who knows?
I'm someone else.
Y'all know. I have lost track of my own mind. Nothing makes sense anymore. Time is meaningless. And we all die in the end. So this episode, I really actually quite enjoyed this one. Because it's so incredibly wacky.
Yeah.
And wacky is often, I feel like, used in a way to... It sort of makes it sound like something was, like, outright comedic. And it isn't, exactly. It has its comedic moments the way that every episode does. But it really, like, kind of sneaks up on you how completely off the wall everything is until the point when the doctor says that one line, which we'll get to, where he sums everything up. And the way that it starts off with Queen Nefertiti apparently trying to bang him?
Sure.
Honestly, I would like for Queen Nefertiti to just be around for a little bit longer. I dig her.
Yeah.
I'm feeling her whole vibe and how, like, bored of the dude that she's with, her husband. What's his name?
Oh, God. I looked her up on Wikipedia to see if there was anything relevant about the real Queen Nefertiti, and you really should not have me pronouncing the name of the pharaoh she was actually married to.
Okay, noted.
Because I'll mangle it.
I was delighted with this edition. Of course, I am bored of women wanting to bang the doctor. But, you know, like, I like the explanation that the dude she's with is just super, super boring. A lady has her needs, you know? What are you going to do? Just ignore that shit? So I feel for her. But yeah, so she is in the middle of trying to seduce him when they are interrupted because of an emergency call regarding a strange ship that is heading towards Earth. And we wind up finding out a little bit later that this was is it Silurian?
Silurian, yeah.
Silurian ship, and unfortunately, there ain't no Silurians left. Which I really feel bad about.
Yeah.
I guess the way that time works, maybe somebody could fix that, go back and fix that somehow. I don't know. But I don't like that this Filch character just gets to kill them all. That does not seem fair to me. I don't like it.
It's funny that you would go with Filch and not Walder Frey.
No, he's Filch. He is, look, Walder Frey is the kind of despicable that I don't ever want to think about if I can help it. The kind of person that just doesn't feel like they should even have a name or be considered a human being. Filch, I feel kind of bad for. Filch is like, just, he's like a terrible person, but he's also in this like awful position that I have some sympathy for. And so I have this weird sort of like misplaced affection for him as a person, even though he does not deserve that at all. So
he wants to torture students and willingly tortured students once he was given permission to.
And this is what I mean.
He sided with what's her face.
This is what have you not listened to the episode where Rashawn and I talk about this, Jamie? Because the thing is that he is a squib and is like kind of basically he's disabled in a way. But is in this world that he can't go and just live among the muggles and be a muggle. Like, when you
Why? Fig did?
What?
Fig did?
She did that because she was on a mission. I don't think that she would have chosen that. She did that because she was given a task to do. But I don't think if it weren't for that she would have just continued to live her life that way. And there's a part of me that thinks that he stayed in the school in this hope that he could eventually like get the abilities that he wasn't born with and break through that. And because of that, like really resents the students due to the fact that he has been denied this out of just some freak chance of his birth. You know, something happened and he just didn't wind up with the ability that he should or feels he should. And I can't help but think that I would be really fucking embittered myself. There's just a part of me that sort of like feels for the dude in his twisted, terrible way. So, yeah.
And so you think that this guy is more like Filch than Frey?
No, I'm not talking about... I'm not calling him that because he's like that character. That's just who I associate the actor with the most.
Okay.
This dude, like, is he just the best at being a villain, though?
Oh, he's so good at being so despicable.
You really, like, I hate him in this in a way that I don't hate a lot of villains in this show.
Yeah.
Like, the villains in this show oftentimes are just sort of silly and feel like, yeah, okay, I get what the threat is in general, but I'm not really afraid of you. This dude is so, like, he makes your skin crawl. Mm-hmm. Oh,
he's God. David Bradley is really good at playing that kind of character. I have seen him in things where, because of the history of knowing him as Filch and as Frey, I immediately am like, that guy's up to bad stuff. He's bad news. And then over time you realize that was good casting because they kind of know you're going to feel that way. Mm-hmm. And then he turns out to be sympathetic and it like threw me. And he also, there's a TV movie that the BBC made called Adventures in Time and Space. And it is about the creation of Doctor Who as a television series. And it's like a biopic about basically making the Doctor Who television series. And David Bradley plays the actor who was the first Doctor because he does have a physical similarity to him enough that they, you know, with makeup and everything, he really did look a lot like that actor. And I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard he's very good playing that role. So because I have seen him play somebody sympathetic And it still freaks me out, like, how did he ever play someone sympathetic? But I know that he's also played good people, too. It just makes me respect him so much as an actor. And I've also heard that he's, like, a lovely person.
Yeah, I've heard that, too.
I think you have to
Now that I think about it, I can't place where I heard that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard that.
You'd have to be to play as awful as he's able to play. I feel like it's kind of like to play really dumb, you have to be really smart. So to play really, really like the lowest levels of evil, just horrible, not even evil sometimes, just a really terrible person. You kind of have to be a really good person to like find that, like how awful bad people really can be.
So by that logic, do you think that people who play extremely smart characters are unintelligent?
No, but I think that playing really dumb in a good way is easier when you're smart and can like observe people's behavior and add that in. Like Lisa Kudrow plays dumb really well. She's incredibly smart. Like
Lisa Kudrow.
She went to college for like microbiology or something. Like something smart.
Something
smarter than I
Guys,
can
you
handle.
heard it here first.
She went to school for some kind of science, and that was her major, but she started doing like theater and decided to go and do that, and her parents were like, what is happening?
Same.
But she plays dumb really, really well. I think because she can see like where the humor, how to make it dumb but not like stupid. I think there's a difference.
Well, so this ship, can we just talk for a second about how much it looks like the COVID virus?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Really hate that imagery so much. And I know that it's like, it wasn't on, like, this obviously was not the intent, but even if the COVID virus wasn't a thing, it does look like a virus.
Yeah.
And I wish that somebody had just maybe not gone that direction with the design of it overall.
Maybe they did it because it's like an organic thing that exists in the universe. This sort of molecule shape.
I mean, there are so many organic things that exist in the universe that are not like...
But this could have little sections for the different animals that are supposed to be on there because it's an arc. All those little
yeah, you could
hallways.
do that in a lot of ways.
Sure.
My house has a lot of different sections in it. It doesn't look like that. So yeah, I kept forgetting because you just get this. It's like people talking about how they'll see people in movies being right up near each other and they're like, oh my God, social distance. What are you doing?
I do it all the time now.
I felt that way like every time that they had, because there's frequent shots of the what is the word for the like control center, I guess, where they're trying to like find where the doctor went or find where, you know, so and so
like the map
is stored. Yeah, the like schematic of the whole ship.
Yeah.
So we see it a bunch of times, and every single time I just kept being like, oh God. Right. No, it's fine. I just keep forgetting.
We're all triggered by the image of a coronavirus.
A little bit. A little bit. I really wonder what the effect of this is going to be on like the psyche of kids who have grown up through this, you know?
Well, Brene Brown is this, I don't know if she's a psychologist, but she is a really inspirational thinker. She's really big on teaching empathy and how you can use empathy to become a better leader, that kind of thing. And she has partnered up with Starbucks on a lot of stuff. And so early on during this virus, when we were all in lockdown, she did a special Zoom call with all of us, basically. And she was like, we all need to just face the facts that we are going through a collective trauma right now. And we are all going to have some level of PTSD when this is done. Because this is traumatic for all of us. And that like stuck with me because I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but it's true. We're all handling it in different ways, but we all are traumatized in some way. And children it is going to be interesting to see what they're like, because maybe they're going to be extra careful, and maybe they're going to be extra empathetic to other human beings. Because
we can only hope.
We can only hope.
Yeah, I hung out with one of Owen's nieces yesterday, and because we were at yet another funeral, and she's this tiny little thing wearing a mask that's a little bit too big for her face. They kept having to knot it so that it would fit, and everything we did, she kept pulling hand sanitizer out immediately after, which is good policy. But it was just weird to see such a little girl reacting in this way when the adults around her, some of them aren't even wearing masks. And I'm just cool, Somebody
wrote something on Facebook, or it was a tweet that was shared around on Facebook, where this woman was saying that her daughter, whenever they're out, will actually yell at people, "Where's your mask?" when they're not wearing masks. And she lets her do it because it's a little kid, and what are they going to do? And it's from the mouths of babes. Kids are adaptable, and they learn bad behavior, but they also learn good behavior from the people around them. Kids are adaptable, but they also all want to be accepted by others. So if you tell all the kids they need to wear the mask, they're going to wear it.
Yeah.
And they're going to understand why, because their teachers are telling them why. And if they've got responsible parents, their parents are telling them why. It's not just about you, it's about other people. And they're going to be the ones that are going to shame all the adults. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Do you not care about other people? And we as adults are not allowed to say that. And I really wish I could. To every person I see without a mask on.
I'm not going to get into it, but let me tell you. So we go from Nefertiti and this emergency ship that's heading their way to 1910, 1908, 19-something. Very, very low numbers.
Early in the 20th century.
And we have got... what is his name? He's from Sherlock.
Oh, is he?
Inspector.
Yeah, his character's name is John Riddell, and I looked him up to see if this was a real person. He's not.
He's not. Oh, that's too bad.
I thought maybe he was some famous big game hunter.
I thought he was going to be. Is it Dr. Livingston? I presume. Is that the one? I thought that's who we were going to get out of it, but then I kept realizing that nobody knew who he was when he said his name, and I didn't recognize the name. So
it made me think of, in Penny Dreadful, Timothy Dalton's character was somebody who was always going and exploring Egypt and exploring Africa, right? And he was probably a big game hunter, too, when he was there.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that type of person.
And he is essentially... the vibe you get from him is that he's just really bored and wants to do something and have a good time, because he's just he's seen a lot of things, and it takes a lot to surprise him, and he's starting to miss being surprised. And cue the entrance of Nefertiti into his life. I don't ship them because Nefertiti is too good for anybody. But I endorse her having her way with him before, discarding him.
I'm looking her up because she's so pretty.
She's super pretty.
You may know her from The Magicians.
What? Who is she in The Magicians?
It says her character's name is Plum Chatwin. Maybe it's not somebody that you've met yet.
Not something that I recognize, but because the Chatwins are a thing, but I don't remember Plum Chatwin.
Okay. I don't know what seasons are what for that, so...
Right.
But she also was in Hamlet with David Tennant and Patrick Stewart. That was her... After she graduated from arts educational schools in London, she appeared in various Shakespeare productions, including Hamlet, alongside David Tennant.
Huh. Neat. Good for her.
She's so pretty.
Must be nice. Yeah, she's stupid pretty. It's like the kind of thing where you just like, you find yourself just staring open-mouthed at her face.
Yeah.
Like,
I did that a lot.
I'm being
where
rude.
I was just like, how are you real?
So the doctor tells him, I have found something. And he says, no. I'm not falling for that again. And the doctor just kind of sits and looks at him and smiles. And he just goes, what is it? And the doctor says, I have no idea. Do you want to find out? And this guy gets this look on his face. And then we cut to Arthur Weasley trying to fix a light. I think it's the fitting. Dad, it's not the fitting. It turns out, guys, it is the fitting.
Listen to your
Spoilers
dad, Rory.
For a major plot point here. But it is the fitting. And frankly, Rory should have a little bit more respect. So that's all I'm saying. But I will say that his father being as dismissive of him as he is made me so angry. I'm so glad that by the end of the episode, he gets to see his son in action doing the shit that he does.
Yeah.
He even yells at him about like not holding the ladder right. And I love / hate how Amy like provokes him a little bit and is like, how about me? How's my side for holding the ladder? And he's like, it's perfect as usual. And she just gives him this big smile. And I'm like, Amy, stop it. What are you doing? Stop making your husband feel even worse. Although this is kind of a thing. I don't know what it is about the way that we decide to treat men specifically, but it is so much more common from what I have seen, and I'm sure it's not just like across the board the case, that we will feel free to tell like a dude, especially his family will feel free to tell a dude's like significant other, I don't know what you see in him. He's really lucky that he conned you into being with him, kind of thing. Have you run into this?
Not towards me. No.
I have run into this more than once with the family of a guy that I'm with, just being like, I don't know how you pulled this off, but you better not let her get wise to what a piece of shit you actually are, is the shorthand for what they actually say. And that is kind of the thing that he says here a little bit in response. Let's see. You're wobbling the ladder. How's my side, Brian? Perfect as ever, Amy. Thank you, Brian. I don't know what he said to you to make you marry him, but he's a lucky man. That is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where there's an attitude like he must have tricked you somehow, because otherwise this just doesn't make any sense at all.
It's just,
and I feel kind of bad about that.
Yeah. I'm always upset with people not appreciating Rory for everything that he is.
Agreed.
Because he's wonderful.
Yeah. So they're in the middle of joking around about this. Rory's looking a little irritated, and then all of a sudden they hear the TARDIS sound. And Rory is like, no, not right now. What is he doing? I'm going to kill him. And all of a sudden, they just teleport onto the TARDIS.
The TARDIS materializes around them like it did to the angels. When the angels were trying to get the box, it didn't really materialize around them. It materialized around Sally Sparrow and that other guy. In Blink.
Girl, I do not remember anything about what you're talking about.
In Blink. The first time we meet the angels. And they're like, the angels are coming for the phone box, and Sally and I can't remember his name, were like cowering because they thought the angels were going to get them, and then the TARDIS materialized around them and saved them, and then disappeared. So that's basically what happens here, is it materializes around Amy and Rory and Rory's dad and takes them away. It doesn't teleport them.
Okay. I mean, doesn't that amount to the same thing?
Not really. Because a teleport is something different. Teleport's what happened to them later. Where they teleport right out of the room.
I know it's not the same thing, but doesn't that amount to the same thing? Is my question.
Fine, sure. Just Just explaining how the dad got caught up in this.
Yeah, honestly, when it turns out that he has come along with them, that was a really nice little... I like that a lot. He's just... Poor guy. He's just not ready. Why would he be?
Well, and he's also the kind of guy who, it's explained, basically goes to the shop and plays golf. He doesn't like to go anywhere. He doesn't like to travel. He thinks traveling is crazy and stupid. And never would sign up for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then later on, we see him sitting like he's a builder with his legs dangling off the side, just eating a sandwich, drinking a cup of coffee, and looking down at Earth from space.
That image made me a little misty. Like,
I could see that.
I found it to be very touching because he started out as a person who doesn't like to leave probably even his town.
Yeah.
And is now enjoying the view from space, hanging out of a phone box, and then spends his life traveling around. It just goes to show that getting outside of your own bubble is only beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that message that is not hammered over your head or anything. It's just he grew from this experience and wanted to grow as a person because of it.
And I really like... I don't know. I just... As much as it can... I don't know if it's this actor or what. It's hard to set up a character for me to care about so quickly. But I really did like him right away.
The actor... In the same way that David Bradley gives you what you need in a very short amount of time to understand the deep level of disgusting that he is, Arthur Weasley is the opposite. He's
a pure boy.
Immediately, you're like, I love you. He just radiates such like warmth and joy. You immediately care for him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just really like, which is shocking because he's so mean to Rory. That you really wouldn't think I would have that like sense of, but I just still did.
Even when he's saying that, like, the ladder's wobbly, it's the fixing, it's not the bulb. Like, it sounds like if it were said with a different tone, it would feel very much like you're jabbing in a mean way at your son. Like you're being abusive. But he doesn't even say it as if he's talking down to Rory. It's almost like he says it with like a wink. It like, I don't know, it's the way he says it where it doesn't feel abusive. It feels like that sort of dry British, like, no, you're wobbling, you always wobble. She's great. You wobble.
You always wobble is such a weird insult, but God, him. He always wobbles. Guaranteed. I know, right? So they all wind up with Nefertiti and Riddle.
Riddle, yeah.
So,
Riddle? I don't remember.
Riddle? I don't want to call him Riddle. His name sounds like Voldemort.
His name is John.
Rupert is his actual name, which is amazing that his name in the show is less British than his actual name. Rupert.
Who does he play on Sherlock?
I'm trying to find the guy's name because it's Inspector something, because he's the guy that Sherlock constantly shows up. And I cannot remember. So
he's like an adversary, but not an enemy.
And not even an adversary. He's just kind of like, just an ordinary. The poor dude is just constantly like doing his best, but then this fucking savant comes in and just completely like destroys his whole.
So if you were to compare it to
Inspector Lestrade, that's Lestrade.
If you compare it to Elementary, which I have much more experience with than Sherlock, it would be that black cop that works with them. Whose name I can't think of right now, but I love.
Is he? I don't feel. because he's like the captain.
No.
Really.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Lestrade is the captain, so he's much more in charge.
Okay. So he's the Aidan Quinn character. I love Elementary. I'm sorry.
I'm like, I can't help you with it. I don't know. Yeah, Elementary was fine. I did not love it. It was fine. So I don't remember a whole lot of it. I finished the series and I didn't notice.
Oh.
If that gives you any idea.
We finished the series and we're very sad it was over.
I finished it and I went to press play on the next episode and it was the end of the series and I was like, oh, okay. Because it just did not make any impression on me.
I love Elementary so much.
But, you know, it's part of the danger of a procedural, is it starts to sort of like just fall to the background for me in my brain. I'm just never really into that type of show, and that's part of why it becomes my like background TV.
Yeah.
So Amy is like, first of all, the doctor starts to get really into Rory's dad's face. Who the fuck are you? How did you get here? What are you doing? When Rory explains who he is, he's like, oh, really? Like I'm just a taxi service. Is that how it's going to be? And Rory has to be like, dude, come on. Really? Are you...
You materialized around us.
You pulled us up here. Like, what are you talking about? And I just found that so amusing, that moment of him being like, oh, well, yes. All right. Well, I guess that makes sense. Shut up, dude. Stop it. God. And I will say, too, that considering the way that everything goes by the end of this, I really enjoy that the doctor kind of gets a male companion for a little while.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Rory is male, but is here with Amy, who was the original, and he wound up being included because of her.
Yeah.
And you never see Rory with the doctor without Amy unless they've been separated somehow.
Yeah.
And this dude getting to really go along on his own without the two of them at all. I just really liked it. It was nice to have, especially not just somebody who is male, but older. Mm-hmm. It just gave a whole different feel to the thing. And I wonder about it, like, from the doctor's perspective, what it was like and if it was much different, you know? But it's pretty cool. I just really like the direction that this all goes in. It was heartwarming. But for now, the doctor's still busy being a jerk the way that he be occasionally. And I love when Amy finally is just like, what are all these other people doing here? He says, well, it's a gang. I wanted a gang. It felt like it was a good time for a gang. And that just felt like the writers to me being like, well, you know, we just kind of, I don't know, we got bored of like just doing the three of them. And we just, I don't know, felt like it was time for a gang. Yeah, you know what? That's fine. I'm not mad about that.
This episode was written by Chris Chibnall, who became the showrunner after Moffat left.
Ah, okay. I wonder if there'll be more gangs then.
Can't tell you.
How gangly does it get? Huh? Huh?
You're fired.
I am. So we have this moment with the doctor and Amy where, and this doesn't happen until later, but I just want to talk about it, where she shares her concerns about him potentially like moving on without her and Rory, and saying that she thinks he's trying to wean them off him. Mm-hmm. And he promises that he's not, but it's really clear she doesn't quite believe that he would tell her the truth about that. And it's understandable why she feels that way. I mean, he's already bailed once, and there's no real reason to think it's going to go differently, you know, another time. That he isn't going to, like, wind up in the same direction, feeling like it's for your own good. I can't keep you with me. But there is a moment where the doctor says, like, you'll be there till the end of me. And she says, or vice versa. And she says it like joking at first, but there very quickly follows this moment between the two of them where they make eye contact, and it's clear that like they're both a little bit disturbed by what she just said, you know?
Right, and I think, you know, she says it jokingly, but then when they really stop and think about it, him being there for the end of her could either be she gets to live out a long life and he has to watch her get old and die, or something terrible happens and he loses her and Rory when they're young, and that's what he's trying to avoid happening.
Right. Yeah, I just liked that moment. I thought their acting was very believable in that moment where she's like joking when she says it, and then they both just stop and look at each other, and it's like, oh, this stopped being fun all of a sudden, you know? I've been in so many conversations like that where it's all like, we're all chill and just, you know, having a time. And then all of a sudden somebody says something a tiny bit too real and you're like, hey, wow, you just really ruined this. Thank you.
Luckily, they get something that distracts them from focusing on that terrible thought.
They do.
Very quickly.
They get a dinosaur. These dinosaurs don't look too bad. Like, they're not great, but I gotta be honest, when I saw that it was a dinosaur episode, I got a little worried about it. And, you know, it's no Jurassic Park or anything, but I just really was much more worried than it turned out I needed to be.
I thought the dinosaurs looked pretty good. There's something I learned. I watched a little behind the scenes thing, and first I read something that said that the dinosaurs they used in this were also modeled from, there was a show that was on at the same time called Primeval, I think, and I think that took place during, I think it was a time travel show maybe, but they end up like with dinosaurs. I don't know, I never watched it. It was another British show. So the dinosaurs were already created for that show. So they were able to use the same sort of already established technology to make these CGI dinosaurs. But the Triceratops was partially a puppet.
There's a part where he touches it and I was like, that looks like a puppet, but there's no way.
Yeah.
And, okay, that makes
sense. The front
sense.
half of the the front half of the Triceratops was a puppet. And then when you see the full body, it's a combo.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when they're riding on
I was very impressed when he touches it and it's up close, and I was like, this looks really good.
Yeah.
What?
Triceratops is my favorite kind of dinosaur.
I don't have a favorite kind of dinosaur.
Yeah.
I used to really like that kind that spits in your face and has a frill, but it turns out that isn't really like a real dinosaur.
Really?
So, yeah, so I got really like bummed out about
Jurassic Park made that up?
They like added things to it. So like the dinosaur itself is real, but its frill is like maybe real, and its spitting venom is totally invented. I'm pretty sure.
That's a weird one to be your favorite.
And raptors are completely like wrong, because when Michael Crichton wrote it, he read an incorrect entry in this like, you know, encyclopedia of dinosaurs, and modeled the raptors in his whole book, the main fucking dinosaur, on this like badly researched. So yeah, raptors are in fact half the size they are in the movie, maybe even smaller.
Also covered in feathers.
I mean, so many of them probably were.
Yeah.
And that is a lot harder to be afraid of. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, because if you've been chased by a swan or a Canadian goose, you know that shit is no joke. But it is harder. It's a little trickier to pull off, I think.
So raptors weren't like 6 feet tall?
They were not. I think they were supposed to be between like 3 and 4 feet tall.
How cute.
And I don't even think a velociraptor is exactly, because I think part of the problem was that somebody had put together 2 different skeletons by accident. They had thought that they were one animal, and it turns out they're not.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. Raptors are pretty terrifying. in the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they were supposed to be... I'm looking it up right now because now I'm like making sure, blah, blah, blah. Smaller than... Oh my God, so many Latin names. It was a bipedal... Is it bipedal or bipedal? I say bipedal, but I don't know if that's right.
Bipedal.
Let's see. In real life, a velociraptor was roughly the size of a turkey.
Turkeys are bigger than you think.
Oh my God, that is...
But still...
That is so much less...
Not as scary.
My God, that is amazing.
Oh.
I feel so bad now.
So,
I'm looking to see if they have a portion of this.
You're from
entry.
New England. Did you ever see turkeys around?
All over the place, yeah. All over the place. They were always on the side of the road.
Yes. It's so weird when you're like, holy shit, there's just a bunch of turkeys over there.
It's, honestly, even though you see them all the time, when you see them, you still just want to stop the car and just be like, look!
Yeah.
And the idea down here, like, you just... The animals down... In the Northeast, the animals that you see a lot of the time are potential food. But down here, it's either you're the food or they are garbage. Like armadillos, which apparently carry, like, leprosy, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't want to touch an armadillo, basically, is the shorthand for that. And it's just a very different world down here, you know?
What is down there that wants to kill you?
I'm trying to think
Coyotes?
what it was that I heard about the other day that somebody ran into. No, well, coyotes are like, they can be a little bit dangerous, but they just don't really go after people. Boar. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. Somebody around here got really injured because there are wild boar around here. And I don't even know if it's like a boar. Wild hog, it might be. I don't know if a hog and a boar are necessarily the same thing.
They're in the same family. They're not the same. They're not the same, but they're in the same family. They're in the pig family.
The raptors portrayed in Jurassic Park were actually modeled after the closely related Dromaeosaurid Deinonychus. Paleontologists in both the novel and film excavate a skeleton in Montana, far away from the Central Asian range of Velociraptor, but characteristic of the Deinonychus range. Crichton used the controversial taxonomy proposed by Gregory St. Paul, even though the raptors in the novel are at another point referred to as another name that I won't try and say. Crichton met with the discoverer several times at Yale to discuss details of the animal's possible range of behaviors and appearance. Crichton at one point apologetically told Ostrom he had decided to use the name Velociraptor because the former name was more dramatic. According to Ostrom, Crichton stated that the Velociraptor of the novel was based on Deinonychus... I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm saying this wrong. Whatever. In almost every detail, and only the name had been changed. The Jurassic Park filmmakers also requested all of Ostrom's published papers on Why can't I say this, Jamie? Deinonychus. Deinonychus? Deinonychus? They portrayed the animals with the size, proportions, and snout shape of Deinonychus rather than Velociraptor. Okay, so what we know of as a Velociraptor did exist.
It just wasn't called a Velociraptor.
Correct.
Velociraptor is a badass name.
It is. I'm not mad at him for wanting to use that name.
Yeah.
I can't say this name. I'm certain that I would have had problems with Velociraptor had I not had it drilled into my head from age 10 or whenever that movie came out.
No, it's one of the easier dinosaur names to say.
Yeah.
Velociraptor. It sounds like velocity. We know the word raptor. It's easy. We can say Tyrannosaurus because we've heard it a billion times in our life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But there are some that I read it and I'm like, I mean, I used to be obsessed with dinosaurs. And there are still names that I can't. I've never heard them out loud, so I have no idea how to pronounce them.
This Wikipedia page is just littered with shit that I am not even going to attempt. Like, there's no way. And plus, Latin can just be weird sometimes. Yeah. And you'll think that you know how that's supposed to sound. And then somebody just throws a CH in there and you're like, oh, okay.
Krista took Latin. She loves to say things in Latin if you ask her to.
Because of the demons?
Because she's Krista.
Krista, are you listening?
Of course she took Latin.
Don't summon anything. Be careful, please. I'm going to try and say this fucking dinosaur's name and my desk is going to start levitating. What did I do? You have summoned me. You look like a turkey. All right.
You're so small. How cute.
So the doctor and... I almost called him Rudy. Rory. And what's his dad's name? Brian, right. They wind up getting separated because the doctor says out loud, I need to get to the engine room. And the ship hears him and is like, okay. And he looks up and initially they don't realize that's where they are because it just looks like they're on a beach and that something has gone terribly wrong and they've been separated and everything is bad. But we find out pretty quickly that they're in the engine room of the ship. They're using like water power in what seems to me to be an extremely inefficient way. But what do I know? I don't know anything. And they get attacked by pterodactyls.
Yep.
Which, frankly, is great.
I like, before that happens, the doctor's like, dig here. You guys dig. I'm going to go look for a control panel, because he realizes that maybe we are in the engine room. It just looks crazy. Mm-hmm. And Rory's dad is like, Rory's like, what are we supposed to dig with? And I'm thinking, your hands, just dig.
Right.
And his dad pulls out a little pocket shovel.
Trowel.
A trowel. And he
says, what kind of man doesn't carry a trowel?
And then I like that he digs a little bit. He hits a metal floor and he's like, there's a floor under this beach. And he's not freaking out. He's just like, nope. Hey, Rory, there's a floor under this beach.
Hey, do you want to know something interesting? You'll never believe this.
And then Rory's like, oh, we're still on the ship.
Mm-hmm. That's the key to anybody who travels with the doctor, is that they have to have a pretty natural calm that they can sustain even when shit gets way too weird.
Yeah. And considering that Brian is described as somebody who doesn't like to leave the house, really, he's handling all of this very well.
Yeah, not bad.
He's very adaptable.
I wonder how I would handle it sometimes, because I always think of myself as somebody who would definitely flip the fuck out and be like totally unreasonably anxious, worried, you know. But then there's also the fact that I have this like coping mechanism of dealing with not understanding what's happening by simply waiting things out until I know for sure that it's time to freak out. And so part of me thinks that I might have this kind of calm initially. It would not last, I'm certain. But I think that I would kind of react this way also. I
always thought that I would be a mess in a crisis because I don't have the like fight instinct. I have flight instinct, or often freeze. When I was living in Oklahoma and the prospect of tornadoes became a real thing I was going to have to deal with, I completely panicked the first time we had to deal with one. And then I set about with like, okay, well, from now on, I'm going to be prepared. And I had a list of like, this is what needs to be packed up and ready to go when it starts to get bad. And then every time I dealt with a tornado, I was really calm because I understood, like, I'm prepared. I'm ready to run into the shelter when I need to run into the shelter. And once I'm down there, I'm safe. And then things happened in my job here, where you would think I would have fallen apart, but it's like my brain sort of flips over and is like, okay, what do I need to do this minute? What do I need to handle right now? And I just go step by step and get everything done. And then I freak out later. Like,
yeah, exactly.
When the pandemic thing started and we had a conference call on a Friday at 6 p.m. and we were told, when the stores close tonight, we're closed. So you need to let all your partners know. And then tomorrow you need to go into the stores and there's going to be a checklist. These are all the things you have to take care of. And initially I went out and told Jason, oh my God, this is getting really real. Stores are closing. And I started to cry because it was very scary. But when I had to then start making the phone calls and letting everybody know, I was perfectly calm. And I handled the closing of my store completely, came home, and then freaked out. I was like, all right, I'm not leaving the house again. Now
I
I'm
tend
scared.
to be somebody who tries to make it easier for the people around me to handle things. So my instinct is always to be as calm as I can in the moment. And then at some later date, allow myself to collapse completely.
That's what I do now.
The problem is that when you are like me, you don't let yourself collapse ever until it happens to you whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So I keep on putting it off because I claim it's for other people's benefit, which is highly suspect. I'm not even sure that's true.
Whose benefit? It's just you and Owen.
In the past, it had been for my mother primarily because she was not a person who handled stress well. So I would sort of try to make it easier for her, which is not how that's supposed to work, but we aren't going to talk about parent-child relationships today. And I feel like, it's sort of the same as you and I discussed in another episode where you were saying, you act like you're dead inside, but I don't believe that. And I said, no, it's not that I'm dead inside. It's that I feel things a lot and I don't like it. It's very inconvenient. It bothers me. I have trouble recovering from it. And that's part of the thing with a meltdown as well, is that I feel the instinct to do it. I would like to do it in some ways, but I don't have time, or I don't let myself have time. And then it just winds up building and building until I just completely explode.
Yeah, that leads to
point.
Panic attacks and full-on breakdowns.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's part of the reason that I just try to process everything out loud. Because if I hear myself trying to talk my way through it, I'll find solutions so that maybe I don't have panic attacks later. That's not always helpful. There are still things that I don't even admit to myself. And then that rears its head in a panic attack later. But, I think I try to take care of everybody around me too. Especially with my job, I'm always making sure that my staff is, understands the situation, understands that, I've got their back, you're going to be taken care of, whatever is happening, I've got you. Inside, I'm freaking out, but I never let them see that. And I just handle things. And then later I'm like, this is too much. Why do I have this job?
Yeah, I feel like in this particular situation, if I were Brian, my initial instinct would be to wait it out and see what the hell's happening, because apparently my son and his wife have gone through this before. This is a familiar thing, and I see that they are safe and happy. So obviously they've managed to get through this more than once, and it should be fine. But I think when the doctor begins to accuse me of being a stowaway or yelling at my son for bringing me along, that is when I lose my cool, because now it seems like this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's when I would really begin to be like, what the fuck is going on? I would want so much to just, because I have this innate respect for authority that you wouldn't believe I had if you know me personally, but I really do. And so when somebody is like, trust me, I have experience in this, I tend to be like, okay,
Yeah.
if you have the experience, I don't, so I'll listen to you. And so that would be like what I would want to do. And then I would quickly be confronted with the fact that this guy doesn't even know why I'm here, even though he fucking brought me here. And that would really bother me.
So if you were in the situation where you're on this beach, all of a sudden you're on this windy ass beach, there's some faraway birds that maybe you should pay a little attention to, since you just ran from dinosaurs.
Right.
And just had an experience with a triceratops who is like a giant dog who just wants to chase after your golf balls.
What have you got in your pants? Just my balls. Oh my God. Rory's face when he says that. It's such a childish joke, but it's Rory's reaction that makes the joke so good. Because it's a combo of like Rory knowing what his dad means and being like, oh, why did you have to say it like that? But also, I like to think the actor almost broke. And he had to do something to cover because it just kept making him laugh. And so he just put his hand over his face like, oh my God. Oh, God.
So if you found yourself on this beach after running from dinosaurs and throwing golf balls for a triceratops, and this guy is like, dig, would you just be like, okay?
I mean, I probably would because, like, what else am I going to do? I don't have a whole lot of options at this point, you know?
Well, you could be like Rory and be like, with what?
And I think what would add... I don't think I would be like, with what? Because I don't have any tolerance for that sort of, like, but how do we do it? Unless somebody is like, well, you obviously need to reformat the plugin for your WordPress. And then I'm like, shut up. No, I don't know what you're talking about. But if it's like a really practical thing, I'll figure it out. It's fine. I think what would help with me just following orders there too is that the doctor says that and then just runs off, which gives the impression that he is also working on something.
Yeah.
And that would give me confidence that he's like, you know, putting me to work to solve this problem, but also doing his own thing. Mm-hmm. If he says dig and then he just stands there and looks at me, you can kiss my ass. You dig. Shut up. But yeah, so I tend to defer to the person who seems to know what they're doing. It's just what happens. I'm a sheep. I'm a real sheeple.
Oh, now you know, folks.
Yeah, I said it. All right. So
all that Rage Against the Machine is a lie.
Rage Against the what? That sounds dangerous. All right. So I'm trying to find this because they like run away from the.
When does the doctor kiss Rory?
Oh, that's like 2/3 of the way through.
Okay.
Way later when it's like pretty much inevitable that they're about to be hit with these missiles and Filch has bailed completely.
Well, when we get to that, I have an interesting thing.
Okay. Well, you can tell me now.
That was ad-libbed.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Matt Smith just did
that.
Oh,
I love it. Yes, I love it. That makes his reaction all the better.
Yeah.
Because that's just the actor just being like, I don't really know what to do with that. So here we go. Okay. So they get chased by the, what are they called again?
Well, we call them pterodactyls. They call them pterodactyls, but actually, they are, they're pteranodons. Ooh, I don't know what the fucking difference is. They're pterodactyls. It's fine. They're flying dinosaur birds.
I really want to know who was in charge of the education of children and the public regarding dinosaurs, that we have so much misinformation and what exactly happened there? So much has gone wrong.
They were releasing a lot of information, and as time has gone on, they've learned more, and they've also discovered more species. So, like, the pterodactyl was the one we all knew because that was the one that was known for a really long time. This one, that the design they actually use, there's a slight difference in, like, their head. And so that means it's actually this pteranodon.
Okay. I can deal with that.
It's just like how we thought they were giant lizards because back when they first started discovering these things, they thought they were giant lizards, but it turns out that they were more like birds than lizards. They just didn't have anything to compare it to.
I just love the idea of how much people resisted that they were more like birds.
That's
just so much less cool.
Michael Crichton writes about that in Jurassic Park, that they're probably more like birds because their bones are hollow like birds. And I remember reading that back in like 1992 or something and just being like, holy shit, that's incredible. But I wasn't sure if it was real or if it was just something that Michael Crichton made up until years later when they're like, yeah, they were more related to birds than lizards, and look, they probably had feathers.
Have you seen a picture of an owl without its feathers? I'm going to take that as a yes.
I can't think of if I have or not, but all I could think of was how when you lift up their feathers and you see how long their legs are.
Their legs, guys! Oh my god! They're like a supermodel under there.
And owls are like my favorite birds in the world. I think they're the most incredible birds. But yeah, the first time I saw them, their legs, I was like, what is happening?
I'm going to send you this. This is a model of what an owl looks like.
Oh God, I don't know if I want
and I'm going to send you the link on Skype here. Because you can understand how if you find like the skeleton and you don't have the feathers, you know, they rot away in a way that the bones don't. So they don't make an impression, or they'll make very faint impressions. It's really, yeah. Yeah, right?
Oh my God, its eyes are so big.
So this is, you know, it's very understandable why we were operating in such a wrong direction there for such a long time.
Yeah, and without the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly.
Put your clothes back on, bird.
What a slut. So, yeah, I saw that picture somewhere. I don't even remember where. And I just stopped dead and was like, what? And, you know, we've all seen, like, plucked chickens and stuff. But that's an animal that's been bred for its meat. So it's even going to have more muscle to it a lot of the time.
We also don't see a lot of plucked chickens still with their heads.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Heads tend to be gone. It's just funny. It reminds me of like those pictures that you'll see of a really fluffy dog after it's gone in the water. And the poor thing just looks like this bedraggled, it's, you know, there's nothing to it.
Remind me to show you a picture of Sansa when she has had a bath.
Oh, no.
Because she has so much fucking fur, and when she's wet, it's like, wait a minute. Half of your size is gone. I mean, she's still a chunk, but all that...
Yeah, she's like Ripley. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. We keep getting way off topic, but that's just how this goes, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm never going to get
Bear
the image
with
of that
us.
owl out of my head now. Thanks.
That owl is... He looks like a really angry old lady who, like, her curlers are missing. She doesn't know what to do. All right, so... Let's talk about what's going on with Amy, because she's over here just like pressing buttons and figuring out how shit works in a way that I both really enjoy and find very unlikely, based simply on my experience with working with computers that I do know the language and how poorly that has worked out for me many times.
Yeah,
I just don't see that working out when it's a completely alien alphabet.
It seems like Amy, of all people, would know better than to just randomly push buttons. Since the last time she randomly pushed a button, she ended up in a different time stream from everyone else.
Yeah, she says something specifically like, that's one thing the doctor told me, like, when in doubt, push buttons. And I was like, is it? That doesn't feel like what he's taught you, I wouldn't think.
It works out okay for her this time.
Yeah, this time. I don't love that. That seems to be the lesson she's taken away from all this. But what can you do? But yeah, so they are figuring out exactly what happened with this ship. And it turns out that the Silurians left like a video log of what was going on. And they were evacuating and trying to find a new planet to live on. We don't really find out what happened to cause them to want to leave, do we?
No.
I'm curious about that because I feel like that's probably not a great story.
Well, and we know that they were from Earth.
Exactly.
So, obviously, I don't know if it's just that, because this is supposed to be the 24th century, I believe, where the ship is. It's not the 21st century. So this is a long time from when they lived on Earth. And when they left Earth, they took dinosaurs with them. So this is really, they made this arc very, very early on in their existence.
So what happened?
I don't know. And how has this all been like, this ecosystem has been existing on this ship for centuries. They're still looking for a place to live, and then Filch shows up and like kills them all.
Dick. Yeah, I just don't really like. I don't know if that's something that the show cares about. If we're gonna get that information at any point, if it actually matters.
I would think if we were gonna get that information, we would have gotten it here because it would have been part of that video log.
I really want to know because I feel bad because they, there's quite a few of them that I really liked. Not that this is that same group or anything, but
yeah, I
still.
mean, we still have Silurians that exist on Earth. We saw what was her name? The Victorian one. With her lesbian maid. Her little... Well,
right, I forgot about it. And she killed Jack the Ripper, which is pretty dope.
Yeah, like, she exists on Earth, out in the open-ish. So, and I don't think that she was, like, transplanted from when the Doctor has that experience with them. When, isn't that when Rory dies? Poor Rory. I don't think he, like, here, let me plop you in Victorian England. Like, we don't have her whole story yet, but she's around. And the Silurians do still have a whole city underneath the crust of the Earth. So, I don't know. I would like them to fill in that gap. Because I do like the Silurians a lot.
Yeah, same. I'm interested in where, like, did they have a specific goal in mind? Or were they just searching for a planet that was totally uninhabited?
It might be. But if they're taking dinosaurs, there are no humans yet.
Right.
So really, they had the planet at that point.
And he says something at one point about how, like, all the species seem to have survived except one. And before I really put it together that this had happened way before the Silurians that we meet, I thought it was going to be like, oh, the Silurians tried to help human beings off the planet to find a new home, but the humans didn't survive. Which would have been a bit of a wrinkle to the plans. But
and also probably if it's truly an arc and they're only taking a few of each, humans probably wouldn't survive.
Probably not. Yeah, I'm very curious about that. But yeah, what we find out is that this dude, he's basically a space pirate and goes around seeking whom he may devour, trying to discover valuable objects to sell and trade.
Yep.
And he sees that there's like a reading, I think, coming from their ship, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? He
hears, because the Doctor and Rory and Brian are on that beach and they're running from the pterodactyls, and Rory calls out "Doctor," and he sees that on the video feed.
No, I'm talking about when this dude originally took over the ship from the Silurians.
Yeah, he saw that there were life forms, but he also, I think, sees that there's, like, dinosaurs. He's got that little thing. He scans the Doctor with it to, like, judge what the price of each thing he's finding is. Mm-hmm. And the dinosaurs are very valuable. The Silurians are not. So he basically sets his robots out to airlock everyone except the dinosaurs.
Thank you for bringing up the robots.
Those robots crack me up. Also, practical. Those are full suits.
Damn.
You need to watch this behind the scenes video. I posted it on Facebook in the Whovian group, but I'll send it to you. Those are full on suits with actors inside of them. And they said they're like so incredibly heavy and they're humongous.
That is dope as hell.
Yeah.
I love that. Because they did also look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And the voices, I don't know if, like, we know the actors that are in there.
I looked it up. The actors that are inside the suits are not the same voice actors. The two voice actors are a comedy team. And that
makes a lot of sense.
I had never heard of them, but they had a TV show and stuff. So I think they're pretty known in England. And they are very funny. These two robots are very funny.
They reminded me a lot of Rashawn and I recently covered for a Spoil Me commission Red Dwarf.
Yeah,
have you watched Red Dwarf,
I haven't,
Jamie?
but I am aware of how British humor is.
Jamie, you need to watch that show. You of everyone
really?
I know would love that show.
What is it?
It is, how to describe it? It is a sci-fi comedy. And the premise is something goes wrong. This dude goes into like cryo sleep and wakes up and everybody is dead and gone. And it is like 20,000 years in the future. And there was a cat on board, his cat, who had been pregnant, as it turns out, and gave birth to kittens, and those kittens evolved, and now there is this human-ish life form that is actually a cat. And so it's him, this weird cat person, and the hologram of an uptight pain-in-the-ass dude that he hated to assist him with trying to get home again on this ship that's abandoned. And it is so funny. It is so funny. These two robots reminded me so strongly of that show because they are a big fan in that show of giving technology a real attitude problem. So they'll be like basically what is the equivalent of Siri for the ship. Mm-hmm. And he'll be like, hey, how long until such and such? And it'll be like, really? You haven't figured this out yet? It's this long, you idiot, kind of thing. And he just has to deal with that every time he wants to do anything. And it just gets very tiresome for him. And it just tells him what an idiot he is all the time. And there are occasional weird, like, moments where at one point they go into light speed and it causes, like, weird time disruptions. So he sees his own future. And it's kind of, like, strange and depressing. But it is, I really think that you would love it. It's a very, very funny show. And it's so low budget that when I first started watching it, I was just like, these guys are running around this set. You can hear their footsteps echoing off the wood fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just really low budget, but it doesn't matter because it's not about that. Yeah, highly recommended. I think I wound up having to buy it on Amazon, but I think that it's like available somewhere else now. I just wound up watching it there because I'd already bought it. And Rashawn and I covered episode 1, and then the second episode covered, or second podcast covered episodes 2 and 3. So that's all I've seen of it so far. And I'm resisting watching more of it because it might be commissioned further, but I really do want to watch more of it.
Okay.
It goes really quickly. Each episode's only like 15, 20 minutes. But anyway, that's my recommendation to all of you. If you are looking for a funny and very strange show, and the idea of a person who is actually a cat appeals to you, the cat is played by, they just call him Cat. He doesn't really have a name. And he is played by a black man who dresses a lot like Prince and constantly checks himself out in the mirror and is very pleased with himself. And it just does ring true to what I know of cats. Not all of them, but many. So
yeah, we put a mirror by Sansa's food bowl because she likes to look at herself. And she would like sit at the window but stare at her reflection. And so we put a mirror by her food bowl, and she really loves that. We find her.
So she's a real narcissist.
Yes, I have pictures on Facebook or on Instagram of her just staring at herself in the mirror.
I love it. Yeah, if I'm going to look at myself, I'll tell you what, it's not going to be during eating.
Oh no, she does it while she's waiting for us to notice that she wants us to feed her.
Oh my God.
But while she's laying there, she'll just stare at herself in the mirror.
Something to comfort me.
Yeah.
During my time of crisis. All right, so I'm trying to figure out where we go from here, because these two robots basically come upon the Doctor, Rory, and Brian, and like take custody of them and escort him to Filch.
Yeah.
Who does this whole, oh, I'm such a sad man routine. And wants to get the Doctor to help him by... I can't tell, is he pretending to only think he's a medical doctor?
No, he thinks he's a medical doctor.
He does think, okay.
Yeah, because the robots were only able... He got attacked by raptors, and his legs are useless now. And
Good.
He has been sort of confined to this medical bed, and the robots did what they could. But that was not much. And so basically his legs are useless. He hears that there's this doctor now on board. And so he's like, you're going to fix my legs or the robots are going to kill your friends.
That's right, because he doesn't know who he really is, because when he searched for the Doctor, nothing came up.
Right. And the Doctor's like, I'm useless. I'm worthless, I think he says. He has had no value. But when the robot shoots Brian, then the Doctor's like, all right, bluff called, and does what he can, but he's still not a medical doctor.
Yeah. But he does manage to, like, help the dude quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. I hate him so much. I hate him so much, you guys. Eventually he bargains his way into getting Nefertiti to give herself up. And it's like one of the most skin crawly scenes imaginable, because he's basically like, she fights him at one point and he's like, oh, I like my possessions to have a bit of fight. It makes it more fun to break them.
Yeah,
just like,
so gross. So that is the Walder Frey vibe right there.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when he's like talking about his young little wife that he has. Mm-hmm. And then when, spoilers for Game of Thrones season 3, but when Catelyn Stark is like, I'll kill her, and he's like, so I'll get another one.
Yep, he does not care. Ugh.
Yeah, he plays that creep factor so well that the Walder Frey thing, even more than Filch, because I've watched Game of Thrones more than I've watched the Harry Potter movies, because I don't particularly like the Harry Potter movies. That's what sticks with me, is that character. So when I see him, he's very skin crawly to me. I just can't. He's gross. Even though, like, I'm sure he's lovely. Everyone says so. But, like, he's always going to be Walder Frey to me.
You still haven't listened to the Wizard People Dear Readers, right? Mm-mm. One of the best lines, because he gives every character, for those who don't know, Wizard People Dear Readers is Brad Neely, I think is the name of the comedian. He does a narration of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the movie. And the idea is that you play it over the sound from the original movie and it goes along with it. And he introduces each of the characters as they appear on screen with a name of his own invention. So I think I've already mentioned that McGonagall is Professor Hardcastle McCormick. And at one point he introduces this cat, and it's Mrs. Norris that steps out, and he says, closely followed by the cat's manservant, Dazzler. And that is what he calls Filch, is Dazzler, which is just so inappropriate, and it makes it so much funnier. So that's another reason why I enjoy thinking of Filch more, because I just think of him as Dazzler, which just does not suit at all. So, okay. We have this confrontation. He winds up bargaining for Nefertiti in exchange for, what is it again that he offers them?
God, that's a good question. I'm trying to think.
Because I cannot recall.
What is it? I just watched this. I'm trying to think.
Because he, bails, and I thought that it was going to be that he helps them off the ship or something, but he doesn't do that. And I can't I had thought at the time that it didn't go the way I had expected. I thought that they were going to be offered an escape.
I'm looking.
And it didn't seem like the Doctor was surprised by the fact that they are still there and he has left. So I was like, oh, I clearly misunderstood something, because for some reason I thought that it was going to be he helps them get out of here. I'm glad that it's not just me, because I definitely was a little bit confused at that part. I'm trying to jump ahead and find the moment where he
I'm
does
looking
this.
through these notes, and I can't even find where she says... Okay, let's see. Solomon then explains his scanner found something just as valuable as the dinosaurs, and that's Nefertiti. The Doctor refuses to have her go. Oh, then Solomon has the robots kill the Triceratops, which is horrible.
Right, yeah.
And that's when Nefertiti and Amy and Riddell arrive. She willingly goes to ensure the safety of everyone else. So basically he's saying...
he's just like, give me her or I'll just kill you
Yeah.
all. Oh, that's boring. Oh, well. I guess that works. So he winds up taking off, right?
Well, first the Doctor
with
realizes that the ship can't be controlled. Like, they've been trying to figure out how to fly the ship, and he realizes that it's designed to require two pilots who share similar DNA. And he's like, so we're screwed. But Brian's like, Rory and I can do it. We share DNA. And so when he works that out, then he finds this little, it looks like a little glowing rock, and that's basically like the transponder or whatever that the missiles are attracted to. And so he pops over to Filch's ship. I forgot his character's name for a second. To Solomon's ship. And is like, okay, well now the missiles are going to be coming after you.
It's a pretty good moment, honestly.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor, there's so many times where it's like, I want him to be harsher than he's being with a person.
Yeah.
And this was one of the few times that I felt a deep sense of satisfaction with how he was choosing to handle this situation.
Because he's like, you know what? I gave this guy the chance I always give everybody to do the right thing. He chose not to do the right thing. He chose to be even worse than he'd already been. Plus, he's already committed genocide of these people who are not bad people. So, not that it matters, genocide is genocide, but he committed genocide and he's unapologetic about it. So, I gave him a chance. Now the missiles are coming for you. Mm-hmm. And we're going to pop back over to the ship that our people now are able to fly, because luckily, I accidentally brought Rory's dad along. Because they would have been screwed had they not.
They would have. It's true. And I wondered what was going on with bringing him. And then once this happened, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's why he was like stuck on this ship, unable to move and just heading towards Earth, which didn't seem to make any sense. It's just that he couldn't steer the ship.
Yeah.
Which had to be a bit of a blow once he realized his mistake. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, not just like, you made a big mistake because there's fucking dinosaurs on this ship and they don't give a fuck how much they're worth. Mm-hmm. They are going to eat you. So then he gets stuck. He can't even walk around. His robots can't do anything. So he can't get his ship out of there. Because he could have done that if he'd been able to fly. He could have just flown his ship out of there.
Yeah.
But he, you know, how long was he laying there, like, with disgusting legs?
I do not know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like, I don't know what he's eating either. There's a lot of questions that are like practical that I have as well. Because I wouldn't think that they would eat the same thing that he needs to eat. Not that it really like matters really, but I'm always curious about if anybody has given that sort of thing thought at all, you know.
It's unimportant.
But it is ultimately, yes. And I'm trying to think if there was any other major, like, so the doctor has this moment where at the end, when Brian is sitting and looking at Earth, drinking his coffee and a sandwich, Amy and Rory are sort of poised at the door on either side of him, also looking out. Mm-hmm. And the doctor is standing behind them. And there's a real sense in that moment of him feeling like he doesn't belong. It's also brought up a little bit when he says something about, you know, like heading out again. And Rory has to be like, yeah, we were kind of wanting to go home, actually.
Yeah.
Which I really liked that moment in particular. That it's like been Amy's concern that the doctor's going to ditch them. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't seemed to occur to anybody that maybe they'll ditch the doctor.
Yeah.
And apparently that might be how it goes.
Because they're now given the time to live their lives apart from him. Because before, it was like leading up to them getting married, and then the excitement of, oh my god, the universe got rebooted, and now we remember this weird life we had, but we're also married now, and let's go have fun. And it's been just like nonstop sort of adventure. And now because he's leaving them alone, they're able to see like what life is like. Mm-hmm. And while that backfired a little bit with Amy, like, oh, I can't give you a family, so I'm gonna push you away. And the almost divorce. Now they seem to have worked through that. She's quit her job as a model.
I don't really like that.
Maybe she never really wanted to do that.
Maybe, but they don't really give a good, like, impression of it. They just sort of have, like, Rory mocking it when she says that she's working, which I think means that the show is trying to imply that it's not a real job.
Right.
Or worthy of, like, being taken seriously, which, like, it just always infuriates me. You guys know that you cast Amy because she looks like she looks.
Yeah.
So don't fucking give me this bullshit about how modeling isn't a valid job when you, like, half of your casting for the women in this show is based on their beauty. Don't pretend that you have some sort of fucking higher aspiration or, well, you know, moral superiority here.
And also don't write her to be a model if you don't want to respect that choice for her. Mm-hmm. Because, like, her being a young kissogram at the beginning of her series is one thing. She's sort of a lost person at that point. Her being a married woman a few years later and deciding to be a model because, I mean, look at her. And all the money that she can make doing that is also a valid choice. But don't pretend like it's not. Just so you can have her quit and what? Because she's not quitting to be a mom, which is what so many, you know, women get written to do. I'm going to quit my job and be a mom. That's not an option for her. So tell us what her option is. Tell us what she's chosen instead. Don't just be like, well, I quit my job.
Yeah. because there's like this sort of implication with it, and with the attitude that Rory had toward it, that they're kind of trying to blame some of their relationship problems on the job that she had, which I don't really buy.
Yeah, and they're not saying that explicitly. That's just like a weird sort of undercurrent that's not spoken about.
So, I don't know. That was the one thing that I was kind of like, why did they do that? It feels like they have some sort of moral judgment about her being a model in the first place, as if that was meant to imply that she, like, wasn't serious about him or something. Like, that was supposed to be representative of her vanity, and yet we know that her pushing him away was not due to vanity.
We've also never seen
her. We know what that was from.
We've also never seen her be particularly vain.
Yeah. Like, you know, she dresses cute, and obviously, like, it's not like she doesn't care about how she looks or anything. There's no implication of that.
Right, but she's not
somebody who's, like, primping or going shopping a ton or anything that they've tried to, like, I don't know. It just felt kind of like an out of nowhere line. Like, oh, I gave that up. Like, that was a real victory for her somehow as a character. And I didn't really get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And I'd forgotten that was a thing, that she, like, quit her job. And I was like, but then what's she doing?
Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, if she doesn't have, and, you know, as a woman who also does not have kids, no judgment if you are able to not work and not have kids. Sure. You don't need children to justify not working if you don't have to.
I don't like when it's written as, these are the women's choices. They can work or they can have kids. And the only valid reason for a woman to decide to leave her career is to have a family. I don't like I don't like what that means.
Yeah, agreed.
But if she decided, I quit my job, I don't really know what I want to do yet, and I'm trying to figure that out, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have done that, so I get it. But they didn't give us a reason. It was just, I quit my job, and, like, we're supposed to be applauding. Like, oh, thank God she stopped being a model. Yeah. She stopped doing something frivolous and flighty and unserious. I didn't, like, I mean, being a model is hard. I've watched Top Model. I've listened to what Tyra says.
And not for nothing, she probably, like, if she had that huge campaign, she probably did make some pretty good money from that. So I feel like, you know, the idea that she's doing this and it benefits Rory, I'm like, does it? Because I feel like he would do better just to take that money and run.
Yeah, I'm sure she was making way more money than he is as a nurse. Mm-hmm. Although I do like getting to see him be a nurse with his dad.
Definitely.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was a big, like, sweet moment for me. That's a thing that I think a lot of parents have this moment. I remember when my mom had this moment with me of just suddenly realizing that your kid has a life that you don't know anything about. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, she came to visit me here. It was weird because, like, I had been away from her for ages, moved to Philly, all of this stuff. It wasn't until she came to visit me here in Texas. And she came to my house, and it was weirdly like there were these potted flowers. And she saw the potted flowers. They were African violets. And she was like, you didn't tell me you had violets. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've had them for a little while. And she just stopped and looked at me and said, you have this whole life. And it was that made her stop and do that, which was so strange to me.
I wonder why it was the violets that made it.
I think because she and I, for a long time, we were really close. And we've sort of grown apart recently as I have started to, like, believe a little bit less in some of the stuff that she does. And I think it was one of the things that we had never really talked about, that I had, like, bought these violets, and she was used to me telling her every detail of everything. And here was a thing that, it was a minor thing, but she knew nothing about it. And I think that was really what it was simply, you know, the realization that there was a whole, like, there could be a lot of things that I had never gotten around to talking to her about. Yeah. That was a part of my life. So yeah, I liked it. And I like the fact that it's like, a moment of competence porn for me, because y'all know that I like that. And I like that his dad has clearly had a very, like, narrow view of what it means to be an adult man. And Rory is showing him that he has his own set of skills that are just as valuable, but don't fall within those guidelines that he has in his head as being the only things that are worthwhile.
Well, and it's that other level of male nurse. Like, women are supposed to be nurses. Men are doctors.
Right.
But Rory's a nurse. As if that's less than being a doctor.
Yep. Yeah, I thought that was really sweet. And I like that there's never a real big moment other than, like, you know, Rory helps his dad and is like, yeah, see, I've got all this stuff in my pockets. That's the thing with us, huh? We always have stuff in our pockets.
Right.
But there's never a moment of, like, him clapping Rory on the shoulder being like, I was wrong, son. I'm proud of you.
Right.
You know, there's none of that.
I don't get the impression that Brian isn't proud of Rory or that they have, like, a bad relationship. I think it's just that they don't think they understand each other, but they don't dislike each other.
I would agree with that.
And then in this, Brian's like, huh, look at you with your little med pack. Where'd you get that? And he's like, you know, everywhere we go, I look for cool stuff that could be useful. Like, that's a really interesting character note for Rory, too. So there's a lot in that little scene of, like, understanding the character of Rory, but also understanding their relationship, where his dad is like, well,
yeah,
that's very impressive. And look, you fixed me.
He did it.
I love Rory so much.
Rory. Yeah, same.
Going through this rewatch, he might be my favorite companion.
I'm just like, I just want everybody to appreciate him more.
I know.
That's all I really want, but it won't happen because nobody appreciates the cinnamon rolls.
I do. Cinnamon rolls are delicious.
Ma'am, stay on topic. Don't do this to me right now.
Sorry, he's also delicious, so.
He is delicious. It's true. So the episode ends with Nefertiti in the tent with Riddell coming out and cocking that gun. She hasn't got her crown on. She has her hair loose. Y'all. When she comes out with her hair loose in that outfit with that gun and gives him that look, I was just like, somebody better go get some smelling salts for this dude, because if I were him, I would have collapsed on the spot.
I read an interesting thing about the real Nefertiti, that she kind of disappeared from record.
Yes.
So I like that they sort of tie that to this as like an explanation, because they never found, like, in all the excavations, they found her husband, his tomb, and she was around when the next pharaoh came up, because the next pharaoh was Tut, who was a child when he became the pharaoh.
Right.
And she was around. I think Tut actually married one of her daughters. And but like in 1330 BC, she just vanished. There's no more record of her. And they've never found her tomb.
Well, she deserves better. But if this is what she got, and I mean, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
He was cute.
Yeah.
I do think that when he says you need a different man with a bigger weapon, I did roll my eyes very hard at that one. I won't lie. Nevertheless.
All of his euphemisms.
Yeah. A walking euphemism.
And then Rory's checking that light bulb again, and he's like, you know what? It might be the fitting.
I think it is the fitting. That's a good line.
And then they get all these postcards from Brian, which is so cute.
It's like a cutout of him, and it says "I am here" on all of them. It's such a weird thing because it does not look like photos. It doesn't look like he is actually there.
It's like he decoupaged his picture with the little "I'm here" when he went to Sao Paulo, and I forget what the other one was. And
there's a bunch of them.
And then there's Siluria, which, how did you take that last postcard? Was that from Brian or was that from the doctor?
I thought that was from Brian.
Okay.
But also, yeah, I did. I assumed it was from him.
I felt like it was unclear, so it was left up to interpretation. I like to think that he went with the doctor to drop the dinosaurs off.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm realizing now that, like, it didn't say, "I am here."
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't him, but I just assumed
But
it
it's
was
a postcard, and why would the doctor suddenly just send a postcard? He's never done it before.
Maybe because he's realized that this little trend that Brian started is a nice, like, little way of communicating without having to just drop in and ruin people's lives. You know.
I think this episode is so fun.
Yeah, this was a fun one. I really liked this one. It's, like, really goofy.
Yeah.
But not in any sort of way that, like, you know, I'm sure that there are plot holes if you dig. But there wasn't anything that, in particular, I was like, all right, but this just doesn't work.
Usually we come upon plot holes that I think in our discussion we make bigger by discussing. And with this, like, they're so minor that they're barely plot holes.
Yeah. Agreed.
Other than the improvised kiss from Matt Smith to Arthur Darvill, which, I mean, who among us hasn't wanted to? So good on you, sir.
Yep.
This is the only individual known to have traveled in the TARDIS with both their parent and their child for Rory.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting about the child.
Well, because we never really knew her as a child, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rory is... He's special in all kinds of ways.
It's true, though. Good boy. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap this up?
Nope.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I know that the episode that is meant to go up this week is late because I have just been having a terrible time keeping up. Like a lot of you are aware, there have been several deaths in Owen's family in a pretty short period, and we have just been scrambling around going to funerals and traveling and generally attending things. And it has been a challenge. So I'm trying to stay on top of stuff as best I can, and I appreciate all of you supporting me and having a lot of grace about giving me room to breathe, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it. I appreciate you all a lot. So just know that. And we will be seeing you all again next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.